Hi, hello everyone. It's me again, Mama Mariel, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Ayan, so in this video we are going to discuss all about the multiplication and division of fractions as requested by many of you. Alright? So, ayun na nga, kung bago ka pa lang sa channel ko is please, syempre, wag mo muna kalimutang i-subscribe, i-like itong video, and i-hit mo na din yung notification bell down below para naman palagi kang updated sa mga bago kong uploads. So, ito nga, sa ating video for today, meron tayong 4 parts. The first part is the multiplication and division of fraction to fraction, multiplication and division of fraction to whole numbers, and vice versa. The multiplication and division of fraction to mixed fractions, and vice versa. The multiplication and division of mixed fractions to mixed fractions. Yun na yung 4 nating categories, and feeling ko magkakaroon tayo ng part 1 and part 2 dito kasi magbibigay ako ng lots of examples enable for you to understand it very well. Alright? So, sa mga bago pa lang po sa aking YouTube channel, si Mama Mariel po ay gumagawa ng mga math tutorials in any grade level, and ngayon nga ay sinisimulan natin sa mga lower level of mathematics para naman pagdating natin ng higher level of mathematics is mas madali nyo nang maiintindihan yung mga matataas na lessons. Alright? So, meron tayong naunang video about fractions. Meron tayong introduction of fractions. Ilalagay ko yan dito. And of course, meron din tayong part 1 and part 2 ng addition and subtraction of fractions, any kind of fractions, similar, dissimilar, mga mixed fractions. Ayan, meron tayo niyan. Of course, before you proceed dito sa multiplication and division, dapat marunong na din kayo sa addition and subtraction of fractions. Okay, so, sa tingin nyo is, mahirap to, madali lang to, as long as naiintindihan nyo yung process. Actually, mas madali pa yung multiplication and division sa addition and subtraction of fractions. So, without further ado, let's start to the discussion itself. So, ang una nga nating i-discuss is the multiplication of fraction to fractions. And after nito is the division naman. Ano? So, when you're going to multiply fractions, napakadali lang nito, no? Remember, we have the numerator and the denominator. And it doesn't matter kung similar or dissimilar fractions ang meron tayong given. For example, in number 1, we have 1 over 6 times 1/4. So what are we going to do is to just multiply the numerator to numerator and then denominator to denominator kahit na magkaiba pa yung kanilang denominator. Unlike sa addition and subtraction, kailangan pa natin hanapan ng LCD. But in multiplication of fractions, diretso na, alright? So, we have numerator to numerator and the denominator to denominator. Just multiply. And what are you going to do is to just memorize the multiplication table para mas madali na kayong makapag-solve. Alright? So, we have 1 times 1 is of course 1. And then 6 times 4 is of course 24. And that is the final answer. And as you can see, naka-lowest term na din naman yan, no? Hindi na natin siya kaya pang i-lowest term, right? So, yan na yung final answer. Napakadali lang ng multiplication. Okay? Next naman, we have example number 2. Ayan. 2/5 times 3/5. Okay. So, as you can see naman, we have 2 similar fractions, right? But then again, sabi ko nga kanina, it doesn't matter kung similar sila or dissimilar fraction. As long as it is multiplication, you are just going to multiply numerator to numerator and then denominator to denominator. Alright? So, we have 2 times 3 is of course 6 over 5 times 5 is of course 25. Okay? And as you can see, hindi na natin siya kayang i-simplify. Why? Kasi si 6 ay divisible by 3 and si 25 ay divisible by 5. And wala tayong makikitang greatest common factor para sa kanila. Right? So we have 6/25 as our final answer. Alright? And take a look at example number 3. We have 1/2 times 2/5. So, same process. 1 times 2 is of course 2 over 2 times 5 is of course 10. Alright? So, ayan, we have 2/10, but do you really think we are done with 2/10? Hindi pa po, kasi parehas silang even numbers. And kapag even numbers, meron pa silang ilo-lowest term. Kaya pa natin siyang i-reduce to lowest term, okay? So, what are we going to do is to find the greatest common factor. When we say the greatest common factor, ito yung number na kayang i-divide si 2, pero kaya ding i-divide si 10. Ganun yung process ng paglo-lowest term, alright? So, meron akong technique para mas madali nyong malaman ang GCF. Tingnan nyo palagi yung numerator. Yung numerator natin is 2, or tingnan nyo kung ang pinakamaliit na value. Diba si 2 yung pinakamaliit na value sa kanilang dalawa ni 10, right? So, kapag yung 2 or yung pinakamaliit na value is kayang i-divide yung ating denominator, that would be your GCF. Si 2 na yung inyong magiging GCF. Alright? Pero kapag naman hindi niya kayang i-divide si denominator, of course, maghahanap pa kayo ng ibang GCF lower than the numerator. Pero ibang usapan na yun, no? So, we have our GCF as 2. Then, what are we going to do is to divide both sides by 2. Alright? So, we have 2 divided by 2 is 1. As you can see, di ba? Kapag dinivide natin sa sarili niya, basta kaya din niyang i-divide si 10, ayan na, 1 na kagad, lowest term na kagad, no? And then, we have 10 divided by 2 is equal to 5. And we have the answer of 1/5. So, ganun lang kasimple ang pag-multiply ng fraction to fraction. Okay, so ngayon naman is the division of fraction to fraction. So, ito ay madali lang din. You are just going to follow what I have instructed. Alright? So, we have the first example, 3/5 divided by 1/4. Alright? So, kailangan kapag mag-divide tayo ng fractions, alam na natin yung process kay multiplication. Okay? So, ayan na nga. What are we going to do when we are going to divide fraction to fraction is, of course, pwede tayong gumamit ng cross multiplication. Pwede din tayong gumamit ng reciprocal. Okay? So, when we say reciprocal, pagbabalik rin natin yung numerator to denominator. Pero, ng isa lang na fraction dito sa dalawang to. Alright? So, first, kung ituturo yung reciprocal, so we have 3/5. Okay? When you are going to reciprocal, kopyahin nyo lang yung first fraction. And then, itong division ay magiging multiplication kapag reciprocal yung ginamit nyo, no? So, itong 1/4, sabi ko nga, pagbabalik rin lang natin yung dalawang yan. Meaning to say, si denominator ay magiging numerator, and si numerator ay magiging denominator. Alright? And then, right after that, you are going to multiply. Like, yung process natin kanina sa multiplication of fractions. Yan. We have 3 times 4 as 12. Alright? Over 5 times 1 is 5. And then we have 12/5. Okay? Tingnan nyo muna kung kaya pa niyang i-simplify or i-lowest term. And as you can see, this is an improper fraction. When we say improper fraction, the numerator is higher than the denominator, right? So what are we going to do is to change it into a mixed fraction. Tama? And when you are going to change an improper fraction to mixed fraction, syempre, naituro ko na to sa addition and subtraction, pero ituturo ko ulit, no? You are just going to divide 12 and 5. And then, ilan bang 5 meron sa 12? Diba, dalawa? And then, of course, multiply 2 times 5 is 10. And then, subtract. 12 minus 10 is 2. Alright? So, si 2 ay hindi na natin kayang i-divide or hindi na siya kayang i-divide ni 5. Kaya naman, yung ating pinaka-quotient or sagot, siya yung ating whole number. And then, yung ating remainder, siya yung ating numerator. And then, just copy the 5 as our denominator. So, ganun lang kadali i-change ang improper fraction to mixed fraction. Okay? So, meron pa tayong second process, yung cross multiplication. Feeling ko ay alam na to ng nakararami, right? So, we have, of course, 3/5 divided by 1/4. So, when you are going to use the cross multiplication, first yung munang i-cross multiplication is ito. Ayan. Okay? So, hindi nyo pwedeng unahin si itong dalawang to, si 5 and 1. Unahin nyo palagi yung unang numerator dito sa denominator ng pangalawang fraction. Okay? So, we have 4 times 3. Diba, pag sabi nga, cross multiplication, edi you are going to multiply, right? So, 4 times 3 is 12. And then the next one, ayan. 5 times 1 is 5. Diba? They are just the same. 12 over 5 and 12 over 5, right? So, ayan, right after that, ganito na din yan. I-simplify nyo lang to mixed fraction kasi siya ay nasa improper fraction pa. And then, the final answer will be 2 and 2/5. So, ganun lang kasimple. Maalin yung pwede nyong gamitin, yung reciprocal or yung cross multiplication. Pwede nyong piliin kung saan kayo mas komportable or mas nadadalian na mag-solve. Alright? So, for our next example is we have 1/2 divided by 3/5. Okay? So, same process. Pwede nyong gamitin si reciprocal. Pwede din si cross multiplication. Okay? So, dahil alam niyo na nga kung paano gawin si reciprocal, mag-cross multiplication na lang tayo, no? So, we have 1 times 5. Remember, kapag ganyan yung process, multiplication na, no? Hindi na siya division, okay? 1 times 5 is 5 over 2 times 3 is 6, okay? 5 over 6. And, tingnan nyo kung kaya pa siyang i-simplify. Hindi na kaya, no? So, yan na yung ating final answer. 5 over 6. Ganun lang kasimple ang pag-multiply and divide ng fraction to fraction. So, for our second part is the multiplication and division of fraction to whole number and vice versa. Alright? So, ayan na. Meron na tayong whole numbers and parang requested din to sa aking TikTok account. Yan, i-follow niyo ako sa TikTok. Okay? So, we have the first example, 2 times 2/3. Yan. So, ito is napakasimple lang din ang gagawin. So, what are you going to do when you are going to multiply whole number to fraction? Maglalagay lang tayo ng denominator na 1 sa ating whole number. Ayan. So, as you can see, nilagyan ko siya ng 1 sa ilalim. Ganun lang kasimple. And then, you are just going to do the process of multiplication. Just multiply numerator to numerator, denominator to denominator. Okay? And we have 2 times 2 is of course 4 over 1 times 3 is 3. Ayan. Yan na yung sagot natin. Pero as you can see, siya ay nasa improper fraction. We are going to change it into a mixed fraction, right? So divide 4 to 3. Ilang 3 meron sa 4? We have 1. Tama? And then, ilan yung natira, no? So we have also 1 over 3. Copy lang yung denominator natin. When you are going to divide 4 and 3, of course, ilan bang 3 meron sa 4? Siyempre, isa lang, di ba? And 1 times 3 is 3, right? And then, we have 4. So, meron pang isang natira. And then, yun na yung ilalagay nyo as numerator. And then, yung ating denominator is always kakopyahin nyo lang itong denominator natin. Alright? So, ganun lamang kasimple. That is the final answer. 1 and 1/3. Alright? Okay, so for our second example, we have 5 over 7 times 6. Same process, just put denominator of 1 and then multiply numerator to numerator, denominator to denominator. Okay, 5 times 6 is 30 over 7 times 1 is 7. And then, improper fraction, change to mixed fraction. Alright, so divide 30 and 7. Ilan bang 7 meron kay 30? We have 4, right? And 4 times 7 is 28. Okay? And then subtract 30 minus 28 is, of course, 2. So, hindi na natin kayang i-divide si 7 kay 2, right? So, itong ating pinaka-quotient, yan yung magiging whole number. And then, itong ating remainder, yan yung ating magiging numerator. Over copy lang ang denominator. And we have 4 and 2 over 7 as the final answer. So, for our third example, we have 3 over 10 times 2. Okay? Of course, same process. Lagay lang over 1. Diba? And then, multiply. 3 times 2 is 6 over 10. And then, as you can see, we have 6 over 10. Right? Then, what are we going to do is, of course, to simplify. Ilista natin yung factor ni 6 tsaka ni 10 para mahanap natin ang GCF or the greatest common factor. When we say factor, ito yung mga numbers or dalawang numbers na kapag pinag-multiply, 6 ang sagot. Dito naman, mga numbers na kapag pinag-multiply, 10 ang sagot. So, we have our first factor sa 6 as 1 times 6. Tama. Second factor is 2 times 3. Tama. So, yan na yan. Wala na tayong iba pang factor. And then, we have 1 times 10. 2 times 5. Tama? And then, right after that, titingnan nyo lang kung ano ba yung highest na factor na nakita nyo. Ito. Yan, common kasi sila. Meron 2. Meron ding 2 kay 10. Ayan, so si 2 ang ating greatest common factor o yung pinakamalaking GCF na makakapag-divide kay 6 at makakapag-divide din kay 10. Hindi naman pwedeng 6 kasi hindi niya kaya si 10. Wala ditong 6, tama? Hindi pwedeng 3 kasi walang 3 dito. Hindi din pwedeng 5 kasi wala namang 5 dito. Hindi din pwedeng 10 kasi wala namang 10 dito. Okay? Eh si 1 pwede. Kaya lang, di ba sabi, greatest common factor. Pinakamalaking common or magkatulad na meron sa kanila. Okay? And we have 2 as the greatest common factor. And then, ayan na. Nahanap na natin ang ating GCF is equal to 2. And then, of course, divide the GCF both sides. Ayan. 6 divided by 2 is, of course, 3. And then 10 divided by 2 is, of course, 5. And that is our final answer. We have 3 over 5 or 3/5. Okay? Okay, next naman is the division of fraction to whole number and vice versa. Kanina, multiplication. Ngayon naman is the division. Alright? So, we have our first example, 5 over 10 divided by 2. So, what are we going to do is just the same with the previous one. So, maglalagay lang ulit tayo ng denominator na 1. Ayan. And then, proceed ka na sa cross multiplication. Bakit cross multiplication? Hindi numerator to numerator, denominator to denominator. Kasi nga, di ba, we have division in here. Kanina kasi yung ating operation is multiplication, ngayon naman ay division. Kaya cross multiplication yung gagamitin natin. So we have 5 times 1 is 5 over 10 times 2 is 20. And then right after that, isahanapin natin yung GCF. Right? So we have 5 and 20. Ano ba ang factor ni 5? 1 times 5. Yan lang yung factor ni 5, no? And dito naman sa 20, 1 times 20. 2 times 10. 3, hindi. 4 times 5. Okay, ngayon naman hanapin mo kung ano yung meron dito. Kay 5 na meron din kay 20. Of course, si 5. Tama? Ayan. Diba? Kasi wala namang 20 dito, wala namang 10 dito, wala namang 4 dito, wala namang 2 dito. Right? And then, yun na yung ating GCF. Divided by 5. Both sides. Okay? And then, 5 divided by 5 is, of course, 1. Over 20 divided by 5 is 4. And that is the final answer. We have 1/4. Okay? So, ganun lang kasimple ang pag-divide ng fraction to whole number. Okay, so for our next example, we have 15 divided by 1/4. Of course, same process. Just put denominator of 1 sa ating whole number. And then, do the cross multiplication. 15 times 4 is 60. Over 1 times 1 is 1. Right? And then 60 over 1, that would be 60 na lang. Okay? Ganun lang kasimple. Kasi nga, di ba, 60 divided by 1 is 60. Diba? So that's it. Ganun lang kasimple ang multiplication and division of fraction to whole number and vice versa.